Tangled in Tuscany. Chapter 17. The Visit. The train from Florence arrived just after noon, slow and stately as it pulled into the tiny rural station 10 kilometers from the vineyard. Sophia stood on the gravel edge of the platform, heart ticking strangely as the doors hissed open. Her sister emerged exactly as she'd imagined. Heels too pointed for Tuscan stones, sunglasses too large, hair pulled back into a glossy braid that spoke of time, care, and a salon with marble floors and whispered appointments. "Soph," Ava called, her voice slicing through the countryside quiet. "God, is that dust on your jeans?" Sophia grinned in spite of herself. "Welcome to the wilderness." Ava narrowed her eyes and took in the view. The cypress trees, the golden hills rolling in the distance, the humble station house that looked like it hadn't seen renovation since the 70s. "Where's the car?" "There isn't one. We're walking." "You're joking." "I'm really not." They took the winding dirt path up toward the vineyard, Ava balancing her suitcase on its wheels, as if coaxing it over landmines. Sophia slowed her pace, remembering how Ava hated sweating, how she always brought 2 outfit options for lunch in the city, just in case the lighting changed. "This place is insane," Ava said. "You're seriously staying in that guest house with no Wi-Fi?" "There's Wi-Fi," Sophia said lightly. "You just have to stand near the olive trees and pray." Ava stopped walking. "So you're telling me you've been living off olives, wine, and dead zones?" Sophia turned to face her. "And fresh bread, and silence, and people who say what they mean." Ava tilted her head. "You're different." Sophia shrugged. "Is that a bad thing?" "I don't know yet." The vineyard spread wide around them as they arrived. Sunlight dripped across the vines like spilled gold, and the scent of rosemary lingered in the warm air. A few workers passed by, nodding politely. Ava gave a small wave, clearly unsure of the custom. When they reached the courtyard, Alessia was waiting with a carafe of lemon water and 2 small glasses. "Benvenuta," she said warmly, offering her hand. "Grazie." Ava answered, her accent careful. Sophia noticed how her sister's eyes darted, taking in the tiled roof lines, the line-dried linens, the distant laughter from the kitchen. It was the kind of beauty Ava admired in coffee table books, not real life. "Luca's in the cellar," Alessia said to Sophia. "He mentioned he might join later." Sophia gave a small nod, catching the shift in Ava's posture. "You'll like him," she said. Ava raised one manicured brow. "Is that what this is?" Sophia blinked. "What?" "This whole vineyard escape. Is it a fling? A phase? Are you pulling a Diane Lane from that movie we used to watch?" "It's not a fling," Sophia said evenly. "And I'm not playing anyone." Ava was quiet a moment. "You just disappeared. No warning. One week you were at an opening with Nathan, smiling like you were fine. And then poof. You're sending photos of barrels and fig trees and handwritten minas." "I wasn't fine," Sophia said softly, "and I was tired of pretending I was." Ava looked away, her fingers tightening around the stem of her glass. That evening, they walked the rows before dinner. The shadows were long, and the vines had begun to turn. A subtle copper edge on the leaves that whispered of coming harvest. Ava trailed her fingers over a cluster of ripening grapes. "So what's the plan?" "You give up city life. Start making wine and wearing linen dresses forever." Sophia laughed under her breath. "Maybe I just want to see where this leads." "That's not you," Ava said quietly. "You always had a 5-year plan. Ever since college." Sophia stopped walking. Maybe that plan was never mine to begin with. They were nearing the bottling room when Luca appeared, his sleeves rolled and a smudge of something, chalk, flour, on his wrist. He paused when he saw them, then offered a polite nod. "Hi," Sophia said, watching the way he looked at Ava first, then her, as if assessing the shift in temperature. Luca gave a short smile. "You must be the sister." "Ava," she said, offering her hand. "The one with cell reception and a dry cleaner." He chuckled. "Welcome." They spoke only briefly. About the vineyard, the weather. The local wine bar Ava might like to try if she ever made it down the hill without twisting an ankle. But Sophia felt the difference, like a film had settled over the day. Luca seemed elsewhere, watching, reading between lines she wasn't aware she was writing. Later, Ava went to rest in the guest house, claiming jet lag, though it was more likely city fatigue disguised as something more graceful. Sophia wandered back toward the kitchen, where Luca was speaking to Alessia in low tones. When he noticed her, he straightened slightly, but didn't smile the way he usually did. "She settled in?" he asked. Sophia nodded. "I think she's trying." He hesitated, wiping his hands on a cloth. "She didn't expect to find you like this." "No," Sophia said. "She didn't." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded once and disappeared into the corridor. And just like that, the air changed again. That night, after dinner, Ava sat by the fig tree with a glass of white wine and asked softly, "Are you in love with him?" Sophia didn't answer. Not with words. She just looked toward the vineyard, where the moonlight touched every surface like a second breath. And she didn't say no. The sun was just cresting the ridge when Sophia found Ava already awake, sitting on the terrace with an espresso in hand and a scarf tied loosely around her head. The silk clashed boldly with the terracotta floor tiles. Ava never did settle before noon. "You're up early," Sophia said, stepping barefoot onto the still cool stones. "I couldn't sleep," Ava replied. "Too many frogs. Or maybe crickets. Something with legs and opinions." Sophia smiled and dropped into the chair across from her, cradling a warm mug of lemon tea. The quiet stretched comfortably for a moment before Ava spoke again, her voice softer now, the edge worn off. "You really like it here?" Sophia didn't hesitate. "I do." Ava looked out over the vineyard, where the light was still gentle, casting long shadows over the vines. The rows ran straight and silent, grounded by years of labor and care. "You always used to say you'd burn out if you stopped moving." "I still might," Sophia said with a shrug. "But here, at least I know what I'm burning for." Ava considered that. "And Luca?" Sophia hesitated, stirring her tea more than it needed. "I'm still figuring that out." Ava's lips twitched. "You've never been great at slow." "No," Sophia agreed. "But maybe that's the point." They sat a while longer, the silence filled with birdsong and distant footsteps from the workers starting their day. For a moment, it felt like the old mornings, when they were kids and shared a room, passing notes under pillows and making silent pacts with nothing more than looks. Later that morning, while Ava wandered toward the lavender fields, for one last attempt at capturing the under the Tuscan sun moment she could text to friends, Sophia cleaned up the small workroom off the kitchen. The space had become her makeshift studio, half storage, half sanctuary. It smelled of old wood, lemon oil, and the faintest trace of turpentine. She was organizing old jars of pigments and unlabeled negatives when she heard voices through the open back window. "Ava." On the phone. Sophia didn't mean to listen, but the sharp tone made her pause mid-step. "I don't know Rachel," Ava was saying. "She's different. Quieter, softer. It's not like her. And this guy, he barely looked at me. There's something about him I don't trust." A long pause. "No, not because he's rude. Because he's careful. Calculated. Like he's been hurt and hasn't decided whether to try again." Another silence. Then a sigh. "I just worry she's losing herself." Again, Sophia stepped back, heart thudding. Not from anger, but from the sting of being seen sideways. Of being translated in a language she hadn't chosen. She moved away from the window, fingertips grazing the edge of the work table. Outside, the courtyard drowsed in late morning heat. Just then, she caught a flicker of movement near the side path. Luca. He walked by with a crate in his hands, brow furrowed, jaw tense. He didn't look toward the window. Didn't slow. But Sophia knew that expression, knew it like the shift of wind before a storm. He had heard something. Enough to draw conclusions. Enough to doubt. She didn't chase after him. Instead, she stood there in the quiet, the weight of Ava's words settling into her skin like dust. Ava left just after lunch. The goodbye was brief, but not cold. She kissed Sophia's cheek and held on for a second longer than expected. "Don't disappear again, okay?" Sophia nodded. "I'm not hiding. Not this time." Ava smiled, a tight thing full of both affection and worry. "Just make sure you're not folding yourself around someone else's story." And then she was gone, in a puff of expensive perfume and the faint rumble of a hired car down the gravel path. The vineyard exhaled in her absence, but Sophia didn't. Not entirely, because something had shifted. The day felt stretched, the air a little too still. That afternoon, she noticed it right away. Luca's distance. Polite, efficient, but muted. The warmth that had started to grow between them, the easy rhythm of passing glances and unspoken understandings, had receded like the tide sensing a coming storm. He passed her in the courtyard without meeting her eyes. When she joined the workers near the fermentation tanks, it was Matteo who relayed Luca's instructions. At lunch, Luca didn't take his usual seat beneath the olive tree. He stayed near the loading dock instead, going over inventory lists with Chiara. Sophia watched him from across the bottling floor, his sleeves rolled to the elbows, hair damp at the temples. His movements were practiced, purposeful. But his silence was louder than any conversation. She didn't approach, couldn't. The part of her that wanted to demand clarity was warring with the part that understood fragility. This place, this man, had taught her that not every fracture could be rushed toward. Some needed time to air, to ache, before they were safe to touch. That evening, as golden light stretched across the rows, and the courtyard began to empty, Sophia returned to the terrace alone. Her camera lay beside her on the bench, untouched. The quiet, once comforting, now buzzed with questions. Did Ava's words get to him? Did he think she was still performing? For the camera? For herself? Was the version of her that existed in his eyes suddenly a mask again? She closed her eyes and let her head rest back against the wall, replaying that night by the fig tree. The softness of his voice, the warmth of his hand, the way the vineyard had felt smaller and the sky wider, just for a breath. That hadn't been pretend. Not for her. And yet something had cracked. She stayed on the terrace long after the last rays had slipped below the hills. The olive trees rustled occasionally, their silver leaves whispering of something just out of reach. Eventually, she rose and gathered her things, brushing the dust from her skirt. As she stepped off the terrace and made her way back to the guest house, she paused once. Just briefly. At the corner where the path met the courtyard, in the far kitchen window, warm light flickered, and behind the glass Luca stood, watching. His arms were folded, his silhouette still, but he didn't turn away when she looked up. He didn't come out either. Didn't call after her. Didn't ask if she was all right. And that, somehow, felt worse than silence. It felt like space widening again, measured not in distance, but in trust not yet spoken.